It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Now, my favorite part of the show, wherein Tim reveals what's behind him. I'm going to say it's Hunter Biden in a Santa Claus outfit and a couple of hookers with him, dressed as elves, with about $1.4 million that they're ready to send back to the government to pay those back taxes. What do you say, Tim?
Hey, you're pretty close.
Okay.
It's the one the hunter missed.
Ah, there we go. What that's a buck behind you,
Sure.
a dilapidated farmhouse, a tractor. Yeah, there we go.
It's the one the hunter missed. It's
exactly.
Missed the deposition.
Yeah, he did. As of this writing, he wants to show up in public, and that's of course grandstanding. Those 5-minute grillings. Yeah. I mean, Tim Russert did more on Meet the Press in a 5-minute interview than
12 hours, 5 questions. Yeah,
exactly. So meanwhile, in other political news, I guess Ron DeSantis is kaput. There's like no shot. Nobody has a shot to beat Trump.
Even Biden.
Well, that's probably true too. Speaking of the aforesaid Hunter, he's got to drag Joe Biden down somehow, because that indictment, he owes like a 1.4 million in taxes. And will Joe Biden pardon him, give up his presidency? Will Biden not do it and just be caught in the stank of what Hunter did? I mean, everybody believes, and I know there's going to be this impeachment vote for an inquiry anyway. But everybody already, or most people, including Democrats, believe that Joe is somehow benefited from this, even though I think legally it might be difficult for Jack Smith, as long as he's bringing presidents. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a few people
prove that.
I think there's people that believe you could get a $3 million beach house if you save your money by riding a train to work and packing your own lunch every day.
Well, he did get those free rides on the Acela, kept everybody waiting all the time. I mean, boy, talk about living the life, Joe Biden for decades on end. Yeah, it would be nice to see where he got all that money. Might be difficult to trace it. Always have a hard time with the smoking gun in these cases. I mean, because it's the access that matters. It's not even getting a quid pro quo. It's just the access, taking the picture with the guy that gives. And I don't know if that's really illegal, but it certainly it bends the rules of propriety. So it may never get anywhere. But
selling a picture is not much different than an art sale, is it?
Yeah, right. I mean, right. What are you really getting there? But it will make a difference with the electorate somehow. And you see that in the latest Michigan poll, Trump was up by 10 and Biden won it by 9. So that's quite a flip-flop here. Now, do you agree with me, though? A lot of people have mentioned this. I mean, Trump's good as long as he's staying on the sidelines, but as soon as he starts opening his mouth and drawing attention to himself, that's when people are reminded of who he is.
I totally disagree. I also saw that he's now can claim 17% of the black vote. That's unheard of.
Phenomenal.
That's and I don't know if you saw this. A new poll, Rasmussen Heartland came out with a poll. 1 in 5 mail-in voters admit they fraudulently
I saw that. I tell you, I mean, I would love to see a proof of fraud. I mean, I just didn't see anything with, where signatures were wrong or that kind of thing happened rampantly. But we'll see. I mean, I
my
saw
proof of fraud. My proof of fraud. You look at Joe Biden. You tell me that's 81 million votes.
I look at Donald Trump and I say that's 81 million votes against him. That's what I look at. But we've litigated this over and over again.
Right.
Hey, fine. I'd love to see that happened.
But that clears it up right there. So if you figure 1 in 5, 20% of the votes were fraudulent.
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's
a big if.
Like 60 million.
That's a big if. I just want to see. I just want to drill down into that and see if there's anything to that. What kind of. But if that's true, that throughout the election, have a do-over.
Why do you think Democrats are so hot on getting mail-in balloting? I mean,
oh no, there's no there's no question that the harvesting and things like that and making it easier because God forbid people should actually have to trudge to the polls would matter. But look, I'm always willing to take a look at new evidence that comes along. I haven't had a chance to really examine it carefully, but I did see that.
And that's just the people that stuck the ballots in the mail. I mean, there's no telling what happened to the ballots when they went from the mailbox to the election board.
I've been.
You're handing your ballot to a Democrat Party member and say, make sure you get that in. It's like, you're the guy that gets all those Trump fundraising, those NRA fundraising letters, aren't you? Sure, I'll get it there for you.
Yeah, right. No, I look, I would love to believe that happened. I saw the statistic there. We'll see. We'll see about it.
And of course you saw it. You didn't want to give it to me.
I can't give it to you because
you could have put it in the rundown.
I mean, I'm gonna give it to you on the 6th election that Carrie Lake has stolen from her. Okay, so but anyway, it does seem to me that if Trump stays invisible, it helps him. I'm trying to imagine a Biden and Trump debate, which is not going to happen, but I would have it moderated by Howard Beale, be pay-per-view based on a graduated rate. Okay, so the rich pay more. You have one round with giant Q-tips, like they had on American Gladiator. Remember that? And Melania and any Hunter girlfriend as ring card girls. I'm thinking we could retire some of the national debt that way with a spectacle like that. But
I wonder if any Hunter's friends were green card girls.
Green card or green
card
girls,
meaning they had work visas or they just they were just illegal labor.
Exactly. So meantime, the one issue outside of Trump that will make it difficult for the Republicans is abortion. And there was this ruling in Texas, and the Texas court actually ruled correctly because it ruled with the law. The law is that you've got to have there's got to be a threat to the life of the mother, and there wasn't. And so the Texas Supreme Court blocked a pregnant woman from obtaining an emergency abortion. Then she made the case moot because she got the abortion somewhere else. I have thought, for sure that Illinois would start an underground abortion railroad, just to get people from the south up to the north.
A little disturbing, a railroad going to a place where babies are exterminated, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so.
Little reminiscent of something.
Yeah, I would say it's eerie. Hey, speaking of,
back on the abortion thing. What I'm curious about is everybody's saying, well, her life is endangered. Her life is obviously endangered. Well, I guess any pregnancy is
it wasn't in danger. I mean. The court ruled
correctly. No, but the media doesn't want to say that.
Oh, right.
They don't want to say, it's the baby's Downs.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to burden her with a Downs baby.
Right. I mean, the Susan Collins said, this was the terrible, what the court did. Well, no, the court ruled according to the law. You want to change the law, change the law. But she's a nutcase. but then I saw Al Franken. Speaking of guys who got elections through fraud, that one I'll especially that first one we've talked about. But Al Franken said, "Well, you're the one responsible for this because you were the vote on Kavanaugh and Gorsuch." Here's the problem, Al. I mean, they don't want the courts to do the job that they're hired to do. They're there to and that's the law. Don't blame it on the courts. And it cuts both ways. I remember, a few years ago, I think we desperately wanted the Illinois Supreme Court to save us from these teacher pensions, but unfortunately, the law wouldn't allow you to do that. And Bob Thomas, former good old number 16 of the Bears, who I got my law license in the same ceremony that he did, said, "Hey, sorry, we can't help you." Well, even though you'd like to. I mean, that's the problem. So yeah,
was
Roe
Gorsuch,
versus Wade. I'm sorry,
Gorsuch. I think it was he that said, if you don't hate some of your decisions, you're not a good judge.
Okay, I mean, and but Franken said, well, these guys are responsible for the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which should have been overturned because it's bad law, and the states now can do what they want. And
well, it wasn't law. I mean, that's the thing. It wasn't law. In that case, it was not law. And in that case, Al Franken didn't want the court to overturn what was believed as law, what he believed was law, at least.
No, right. I understand.
In that case, he didn't want the court ruling in the sake of the law.
Well, look. I mean, he wanted to keep the precedent, just like we should have kept
Sure.
Plessy versus Ferguson, which was separate but equal. But anyway, okay. Tell us about. Speaking of Underground Railroads,
do we have time?
Local news. The South Shore Line. Tell us.
I think we have to. We're out of time, aren't we?
Oh, well, okay. We'll tease on that. We'll come back in the next segment and mention that. Can you get up a better background? I'm getting a little tired.
It's comforting.
Okay, maybe so. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap.
Chairman Durbin, can I ask you a quick question? Why won't you subpoena Jeffrey Epstein's flight logs?
So, who are you?
Hillary Vaughn with Fox.
With Fox, of course. I don't know anything about his flight logs.
But why won't you subpoena them? Why don't you want to know?
I don't know the issue. I know who Epstein was, but I certainly don't know anything about the issue.
Well, he was charged with sex trafficking, so why don't you want to know who was utilizing his private plane?
Never been raised by anyone.
Well, Senator Blackburn has wanted to subpoena them, and there hasn't been a vote in your committee.
He said a word to me, not a word.
But aren't you curious, like, what high-profile or powerful people might be closeted predators and pedophiles? Doesn't that concern you?
Of course.
So why won't you subpoena them if you can?
It's the first time anyone has raised it. Thank you, Fox.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. I mean, you talk about screwing the pooch. I mean, so basically the Penn president couldn't have done a worse job before Congress has she shown up in face paint and sat in Nancy Pelosi's chair. I mean, it was just, it was ridiculous. How they should have been prepared, but they've been in this cocoon for their entire careers. Admittedly, they were stuck because they really did have nowhere to go. It was checkmate that way. So the Penn president takes the pipe, but she stays on as a law professor. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if she will get any of the vigorish on the $100 million donation that it will be reinstated. And who's it? Representative Omar, one of the squad members. I'm wondering if she says that the resignation of the Penn president was all about the Benjamins. I haven't heard her say that, but I mean, she'd have a case there because I mean, we are talking about money being withdrawn, and that's why these university presidents are feeling the squeeze.
Now, am I wrong? Was she the only white president that kind of screwed the pooch there in the subcommittee?
Kornbluth is from MIT, and I can't remember what she looks like. Claudine Gay is the Harvard one.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet from some. Well, first of all, Claudine Gay also has this plagiarism problem. She plagiarized another black female scholar.
Sure.
But nobody cares about black on black crime, right? So that doesn't matter that she did that.
I guess Chris just put up the photo. I guess
yeah, right.
She isn't the only. Well, the other one by Kornbluth. That sounds like a Native American name.
I think one of those. It looked as one of the photos. It may have been the Penn one. Reminded me a lot of Christine Blasey Ford. There's that certain blonde, vacant look.
Oversized glasses.
Yeah, right. But
yeah, she plagiarized, but it was so I guess it's I guess in socialists, I believe that academic work belongs to everybody.
Well,
so
right.
maybe that's why.
I've always said plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery, and you can use that without attribution, of course. And but you remember Martin Luther King was a plagiarist. So I mean,
Who did Martin Luther King plagiarize?
Yeah, he did. I mean, that was he was a philanderer and a plagiarist, but everybody's got something, right? So,
yeah.
I was just there was some.
It's a philanderer and a plagiarist, and that's a plagiarist, and that's just the P's.
Those are the right. But a great civil rights leader. But I saw some female black academic tweeting. I forgot her name, but she said, "Look, there is no way that a black woman gets to the level of being a Harvard president by cheating. It's so hard for black women to rise through the ranks, whereas like white men can get it through being golfing buddies." And I was just wondering if Larry Summers is going to join the LIV tour. What's his golf handicap? Larry Summers, if you recall, he was the Harvard president, and he's got credentials up the wazoo, and he also, but he got kicked out, if you recall, because he had the temerity to suggest that there might be genetic differences which account for the different accomplishments by men and females, males and females, with regard to the sciences.
Sure.
So that knocked him out because the greater the truth, the greater the libel, I always say. And
it also made it easier for a lot of women to get into Harvard after that too, I imagine.
Oh yeah, and it probably paved the way for Claudine Gay. Yeah. Now I'm wondering, now that the president of Harvard has been exposed as a fraud, is it time to revisit Supreme Court Justice Jackson's alleged cred? People have ridiculed. We haven't seen much of what she's done, but to the extent we've seen anything,
not a biologist, not a biologist Jackson, right?
Right. So that was pretty bad.
That answer was very similar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When they asked her, it was a real simple question with a complex Ivy League answer.
Right. So, meantime, in other developments, did you see this? The self-described queers on the Manhattan Bridge protesting in favor of Hamas or the Palestinians. And of course, you can't help thinking, if Hamas took over, you people would be thrown off that bridge. I just, but it doesn't. I mean,
need one Hamas terrorist with a shopping cart and just sweep through that protest.
Yeah. Did you see? I'm really scared here. I think Taylor Swift may be anti-Semitic too. She went with Selena Gomez to a.
Does that really shock you?
No, not at all.
Have you ever seen a pop star so Aryan as Taylor Swift? I mean,
somebody was saying that Taylor Swift couldn't. I'm having a hard time right now. Couldn't state a single declarative sentence that made any sense in an interview with Time Magazine. I think it was. Well, I mean, she's a musician.
She's also Person of the Year. Did we mention that?
I always feel that if you only look at Time Magazine that one day of the year to see the Person of the Year, you really don't have any standing to talk about Time Magazine. It seems like Time exists just for that one not even an issue.
I think that's the only issue that's published, actually.
Right. It's not even published. They just keep naming.
Here's my take on it. I guess you don't want to talk about it, but
no, go ahead.
Here's my quick take on it: is that I believe that she should get that, because I believe her tour is the one thing that kept the economy out of recession this year.
Right. Absolutely.
So I mean, I think if you actually look at the GDP over the past year, and then add that billion, more than $1 billion. I mean, it just grossed $1 billion.
No,
that's not counting all the hotels and the restaurants.
Absolutely.
And, a lot of cities saw more revenue this year than they've seen since even before the pandemic. It was a boon to any place that had.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I will tell you though that this might not be the answer for it, but there is going to be an NFL game next year in Brazil, and I'm kind of hoping that Dolly Parton will sing "The Girl from Ipanema" at that, and dress up like and that might be an
dress up like the cheerleader again.
Well, no, it's the girl from Ipanema. She'll be in a
bikini,
in a sarong, walking down the beach.
Bikini?
Yeah,
I can't remember what the girl from Ipanema wore.
Speaking of hot women, Kamala Harris, she had a lighting ceremony of the Hanukkah menorah with her husband, who is Jewish. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy. I mean, he's not even the first husband; he's the second husband, right? Okay, so I mean, it's
second husband, first gentleman. Okay.
Now, here's the thing: the thing that we're showing right now is not. That's at the White House, I believe. They had another ceremony, just he and Kamala, and the tweet from the husband was talking about how Hanukkah was the holiday in which the Jews had to hide out, and then the oil lasted 8 days. Well, I think he was confusing Judah Maccabee with Anne Frank, because the Jews didn't hide out for that. Them were the fighting Jews. Okay, they were killing everybody, and they even killed some Jews over this who weren't as pure as some other Jews. And it wasn't about hiding out, but that's how everybody likes. And that tweet was deleted by the second husband, apparently. But people are saying, I mean, life imitates Veep. I don't think Julia Louis-Dreyfus could have come up with that. So, yeah,
well, I don't think they actually used candles at the White House ceremony, though. Oh, because Joe Biden would have tried to blow them out.
Yeah, right.
Is it my birthday again?
Could have been. But it's just indicative of what the liberal mindset is that, okay, well, we're going to make up a story in our head about what Hanukkah is.
Well, actually,
he's a Jewish guy too, so he has no excuse. And
actually, Bruce, I didn't know.
Well, but you're not Jewish.
I know, but I didn't know. So
okay, but I mean,
I thought. So was it the temple light? Is that where the oil lasted?
The oil was for the temple, and there was they actually did have enough oil to light candles. They didn't have pure oil, the oil that is sacred. They didn't have enough sacred oil. That's how Orthodox Judah Maccabee was. But but it's not about Jews hiding out.
No, I want to go back on this. So they had oil. Yeah. Just the extra virgin, just the extra virgin bottle was
right, exactly. It wasn't
so did anyone check? Over those 8 days, did anyone check and see if the level of the unsanctified oil went down?
A guy like you who doesn't trust mail-in ballots, I totally get it. We always need the skeptics.
Might not have been a miracle.
We all right. Just cancel the holiday at this point. Hey, now that Doug Emhoff or whatever his name is, I mean, it's not good that the second gentleman couldn't get the basics on the holiday right.
I got
so that was a little difficult. That was a little bad. And let's see. Well, I think we ran out of Jew time here. We wanted to talk about the South Shore line in Indiana. We'll get to it. Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Rip.
of Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania are under fire for their responses on how to handle calls for Jewish genocide on campus. Well, tonight, second gentleman Doug Emhoff, who is the first Jewish spouse of an American president or vice president, speaking at the National Menorah Lighting, just said, quote, "The lack of moral clarity is simply unacceptable."
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. So I guess, Durbin stonewalled this. Marsha Blackburn wanted to get the Epstein private flight logs. And now you've got this Tennessee congressman trying to get the logs. Why would the Democrats stonewall on this? I mean, they could nail Trump. He was on those planes.
Well, they claim he was on those planes. They also claimed he cheated on his income tax, if you remember that too. And then that's why he was not allowing it to be released. So I don't know that Trump's necessarily on there.
Okay. I mean,
the flight logs come out, then there's evidence that maybe he wasn't. And the fact that he doesn't want them released, I just want the D's.
You just want what?
I just want the D's. Just
right.
just that's all. I want to see the D's because I'm pretty sure.
It'd be. It's not right. We still don't know, and I'm not a conspiracy buff, as you well know, but it's still pretty suspicious on how Epstein died, and I just would really like to, we should be allowed to satisfy our prurient interest and find out exactly what happened here.
Well,
I don't know how probative it would be, but it might help.
Yeah, the flight logs, would that show how many people actually went to his island? If person A was on his flight and the flight landed in the Virgin Islands and then was there for 3 days and then flew back, I guess we can assume that that person A was entertained while on the island, right?
I would say, from mega data like that, you'd be, or metadata, you'd be able to determine or infer what happened there.
Well, you could also check their phone and see did their phone go to that island?
And did they make any purchases at the CVS on the island for condoms or something like that?
And antibiotics.
Yeah. So it's, have we had a good sex scandal recently? I'm trying to think. We're due for one.
Yeah. No, that was the last one.
So much stuff nowadays is.
When Maxwell went up, when they sent Maxwell up, that was it. And it's and of course, there's another call. Where's the client list?
Right.
There's got to be a client list, right?
We did have the Trump rape trial. I mean, how soon I forget. My hunger for sex cases will not be satiated.
That actually kind of that kind of amused me. Oh dear. There's another Hunter.
There we go.
Chris showing a picture of Hunter in a jockstrap.
We're so bogged down now in legal minutia. Whether the case should in Washington, the January 6th case should be immediately tried, or should it go through the normal procedures with an appeal to the appellate court and then to the Supreme Court? I mean, it has great ramifications, I understand, but it's kind of dry legal stuff. It's hard for the public to get its head wrapped around this stuff. But a good sex case would be the time right now.
The amusing thing in the Trump rape trial was that he said he emphatically stated that she's not my type.
And
then they showed a picture of her, and he goes, "Oh, that's my wife." And they said, "Well, there, we caught you." No, it seems to me that if you're going to go,
his wife was not his type.
Exactly. Right. Or especially if you're going to stray, you're not going to go for a woman that looks like your wife.
No, make perfect sense. Look, I'm on the same page with you on that.
You're going to try something a little strange.
Yeah. All right. So I hate to pivot here because that's so fascinating to me. But I got into a little Twitter thing. Do you have any idea who Richard Brookhiser is? Do you have any idea? You don't know, right?
Name's familiar. I don't
All right.
really
Well,
know.
he was actually the heir apparent to William F. Buckley. He was supposed to be the editor of National Review, and then Buckley, in not too courageous a way, I don't know if he slipped a note under his door one day or just left him. He didn't directly tell him, "You're not getting the job," and he didn't get it. And he does stuff for National Review, and he spent a lot of the last couple of decades writing about the founding fathers. And the guy's brilliant, and we happen to follow each other on Twitter. I mean, that's how far his star has fallen. But I mean, but he has a piece about the Jews in New York City that ran a National Review just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, the guy's brilliant. He's unbelievable. Well, somebody was tweeting to him this week because he's so immersed in the colonial times that about Aaron Burr, that apparently Aaron Burr was administered the last rites by Clement Moore. You know the name Clement Moore? Does it sound familiar?
Clarence Clement Moore, right?
Or Clement Clark Moore or Clark Clement Moore, whatever. He's the guy who wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
Right.
Okay. I mean, I have a feeling there were only like about 10 guys who were doing anything during colonial times. Everybody else was starving and dying young. But, Benjamin Franklin, one of the instrumental guys in bringing us the Republic, also discovering electricity, and this guy writing this poem supposedly and administering the last rites. There were like about a dozen guys who did everything back then. But
Paul Revere made pots.
Of course.
He wasn't just a watchman.
Everybody was a multitasker back then. Nobody had time to specialize. So that inspired me. So I wrote this to Richard Brookhiser. I wrote, "He fired the shot into Hamilton's belly, and it shook and it quaked like a bowl full of jelly. Clement Moore." So he writes back to me, "I can never unread this." So I then apologized. I don't know if he'll ever correspond with me again, but I just,
was it a belly shot?
Absolutely. Oh, it was. I actually looked it up to make sure. At least because I wanted to make sure.
Sure. When you're tweeting to a historian, you don't want to get called out on that.
He was actually hit above the hip in the abdomen. So I mean, I get counted. I mean, I don't. After I saw that one shot there, I didn't see if there was another shot. Well, in a duel, you have one shot, right? That's it.
Yeah.
I would guess. So in any event, all right. Speaking of,
speaking of this, and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but in the play Hamilton, does Aaron Burr hold the gun sideways?
I didn't notice that. The only thing the great thing was about Hamilton, and I would recommend this especially for seniors like me. We saw it on TV with closed caption. And that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, otherwise, I'm not going to catch the rap lyrics.
You can get closed captioning in a theater.
In a theater?
Yeah. Yeah, they do that now.
That's in a movie theater, not in a play.
No.
In a play, what do they give you? Google glasses or something to wear so that you?
No, I think it's a little box that you put on your lap, and it actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so.
Well, shows how long it's been since I've been to the theater.
It's cheaper than a sign interpreter. That's
absolutely.
And that's kind of distracting to have the sign interpreter when
somebody told me that I think this past week was the anniversary of the Nelson Mandela Memorial with a fake sign interpreter. and the fake sign interpreter was like right near Obama and everyone else. And somehow this fake, I mean, he was just like making referee signals, offside, illegal procedure. Yeah. False start.
Well, my question is, because we saw it all during the pandemic, governors, they all do that now. They all have the sign interpreter.
Oh, yeah, right.
My question is, who's that for, really? Is that for the one person left in America that doesn't know how to turn on the closed captioning?
Well, we got to keep these people employed. What about have I told this story before about a sign interpreter at the Paul McCartney concert?
No.
Okay. So my daughter is taking me quote unquote, to a Paul McCartney concert at Wrigley Field. Well, she got one tickets radio station giveaway. Well, it wasn't actually in Wrigley Field. The concert was in Wrigley Field. We were sitting at the seats on the rooftop down the left field line from Wrigley Field. So we could hear the concert just fine, but the stage was pretty far away and it's way off to the left, and we could barely make out anybody. And at one point, my daughter says, I think Paul McCartney is playing a right-handed guitar. Why would he be doing that? About 45 minutes later, we finally were able to figure it out. That was really the sign interpreter. We weren't watching Paul McCartney at all. Not at all. So that was a great Paul McCartney concert experience. Although she and other members of my family and I did get to see Paul McCartney live once at the United Center. So it's not a total loss.
Did not think to bring binoculars, huh?
Didn't know it was going to be that far, being on and plus I don't like heights. So, I mean, just sitting in those stands and the rooftop,
sure.
was a little frightening for me, but, it was okay. It was fine.
Was it a radio party there on the rooftops? I mean, was everybody? Did everybody win
There were
tickets?
radio station winners. It wasn't even a station I listened to at all, and I've worked for almost every station.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I was wondering if it was a radio station giveaway for the rooftop. I was wondering if any of you knew anyone there, because usually they have a few.
I didn't really even know anybody. Huh. I knew my daughter, and it's a great experience. That we'll always cherish the day we were bamboozled by Paul McCartney's sign interpreter. We got to talk about that South Shoreline story you wanted to talk. Well, we'll get to it next segment. Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap.
It's Christmas Eve in LA, California.
Is Daddy coming home soon? Well, we'll see what Santa and Mommy can do, okay?
And New York cop John McClane has come to see his wife.
I missed you.
Instead, he's going to have to save her. Within this skyscraper high above the city, 12 terrorists have declared war.
They're about to be taught a lesson against the real use of power.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. So, the question comes up every year, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And this attorney who writes for National Review, Dan McLaughlin, he's at Baseball Crank, says that in a tweet, if you consider its original public meaning, Die Hard was not understood in 1988 as a Christmas movie. I thought that's how a lawyer would talk. It's an originalist position. I believe in the living and breathing Die Hard myself. I'm kind of a radical, so I'm willing to believe it was a Christmas movie. You're the tiebreaker, Tim. Do you care?
Oh no, I've always said it's a Christmas movie.
and what leads you to that inescapable conclusion?
Well, for a couple of reasons. Did it come out around Christmas time?
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, I think it. Well, wait, I don't know when it.
When it was released
on Christmas.
I mean, they didn't save it till after January because they thought they might get an Oscar, right? So it probably came out around Thanksgiving.
Okay,
and I mean that was probably the reason why it had the tie-in. It was probably intended as a Christmas.
So you're saying the timing would be dispositive of the issue, not the setting of the movie.
It was probably a Christmas release. It happened.
I mean, I don't know.
It happened over Christmas, and a lot of you see some of those things that Bruce Willis pulled off. Plenty of Christmas miracles happened in that film.
No question about it. Now, what was the name of the tower in that movie? Trivia question.
Mochi. Something like that.
I wanted to say it was the Otani Tower because I'd like to transition right now to. It actually came out in July of '88. So. You're that's going to be a strike against you, but I did want to turn to one.
But the other thing, it runs on TV during Christmas, right?
Well, right, because now it is viewed that way. That's why I believe in the living and breathing.
But I think even before, and I think probably a lot of families when they're sitting down with the family after dinner, and they go, "What do you want to watch?" Anything but Rudolph or Charlie Brown.
I agree.
Look, Die Hard's on, and I think a lot of families. It became a tradition, started watching Die Hard every Christmas. So
I would agree with you, and I'm glad that you become a radical like me, and that you will join Justices Sotomayor and Kagan and the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the Living and Breathing Die Hard. Okay.
Are you familiar with the Donald Duck cartoon that in Norway that it's a Christmas cartoon?
No, I'm not. Tell me about
It's it was a Wonderful World of Disney, and it was just a bunch of little clips from all their cartoons, and they stuck them all together, and it was something on the that they ran near the holidays, and they ran it in Europe once, and it was so popular that they ran it again and again, and every year they ran it around Christmas, and it was like on Christmas Eve, people in Norway would all gather around and watch this Donald Duck cartoon. And it had nothing to do with Christmas,
right?
But it's one Christmas when they decided not to run it, there were so many complaints.
It just becomes a Christmas tradition. Well, speaking of Christmas tradition, so you ever see a Charlie Brown Christmas? Did you ever?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I remember the first time it came on.
Wow.
In 65, CBS put it on, and I had been a big Peanuts fan. I'd like read collections of Peanuts cartoons.
Yeah, me too.
Books.
Me too.
I mean, I loved Schultz, and as a matter of fact, I was really looking forward to it in 65 because, oh boy, now they're finally, and I think I was a little disappointed that it wasn't how his voice was sounded to me in my head. Also, if you recall, Charlie Brown's chief complaint was about the commercialization of Christmas, and how is the commercialization of Christmas manifested more than by a Charlie Brown Christmas itself? That's it kind of launched the Peanuts memorabilia stuff, the Peanuts craze.
If you really did see the first one, you remember that it was brought to you by the fine people who bring you Coca-Cola. There were several Coca-Cola ads throughout there. And
I remember there was product placement. I remember Snoopy
right at the end when they were singing the woo 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 woo. That's when the Coca-Cola thing came over the Christmas tree. So I mean,
I was actually going to make a joke about Snoopy handing the Red Baron a Coca-Cola, but they actually had that.
It actually did. It's while they were singing. It's brought to you by the Merry Christmas from the Coca-Cola, your local Coca-Cola bottler.
The real controversy in that movie was that Charles Schulz had a biblical verse put in there, like from the book of Luke, because Christmas, I don't know if you know this, it has to do with Christianity, and they had a biblical verse, and CBS didn't want to have the biblical verse. They were okay with Coca-Cola, but they thought the biblical verse was too religious. And I think they actually did wind up having the biblical verse in there. But
so it kind of reminds me of Dr. Strangelove, that line where it goes, well, if you're wrong, you're going to have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
Meanwhile, Coke is woke, right? No, I mean they're one of the woke companies. They're definitely one of the woke companies right now.
Well, they still got cocaine in it, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. God bless them for that.
Hard not to be woke.
So, did you see? Have you followed baseball and all this signing of this guy Ohtani?
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's a Japanese-born player who can both pitch and hit. Nobody's been ever been able to do that, and he got a $680 million deal with the Dodgers. I mean, that's the sound of Vin Scully with the most pregnant pause he ever had, not because he's dead, but because this is just jaw-dropping and not being able to say anything. $680 million, but it's almost all deferred. He's going to get paid like a utility infielder so that they can have other money to buy other players to play with him. Here's one thing. I can't believe that he's the only guy who can pitch and hit at a spectacular level. He comes from Japan, which has like a 0 birth rate now. So how did they even produce a guy, any baseball players, much less one of the greatest baseball players of all time? And how come we can't produce somebody who can do that?
Well. First of all, I would guess that they rather than a pitcher, I would guess that he might be a shortstop.
Exactly. And, it reminds me that why was it that Rahm Emanuel decided to become the ambassador to Japan? I mean, leaving aside the fact that he couldn't get anything else, like transportation secretary, because, of course, we had to have Pete Buttigieg get that because he was so qualified for it. Why did Rahm wind up becoming the the ambassador to Japan.
He wanted to feel tall.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, you think a short.
So
yeah,
I don't pay much attention to sports, but
Right.
doesn't the National League allow designated hitters now?
yes, they do.
So it
Yes.
seems to me that talent would have been valuable 10 years ago, but it's not so much now, right?
Well, it's pretty valuable when you can have a guy who can pitch every fourth or fifth day and then hit every other day, and you don't have anybody else who could do that. He's like two spectacular players.
So
Like two of the greatest players ever rolled into one.
So the designated hitter doesn't have to replace the pitcher. I mean,
there
if
is
you've
no
got like a
designated hitter
great
anymore.
what?
There is no designated hitter anymore. Both leagues don't have they both have designated hitters. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the National League is not free.
So
of
the designated hitter usually pinched hit for the pitcher, right?
Yeah, right.
So is that a rule that it has to be for the pitcher?
Oh no, you could have the pitcher can.
So
hit
if
as
they
well.
find like a great first baseman, they can't hit for worth a darn. They can use a designated.
You know
hitter
what?
for
I think, boy, this is a test. I think you can only have the DH substitute for the pitcher.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yes,
you can't have the DH substitute. Can't have the DH substitute for first baseman.
yeah, like I said,
No, that was
seems
a
to
nice
me-
thought that you had.
It seems to me his value was diminished.
No, yeah, may have been diminished a little
with
bit.
the DH.
You're absolutely right. I mean, for a guy who doesn't know anything about sports, I mean, it was a pretty keen observation, my man. So let me, before we get to that South Shore Railroad line, because we're running out of time, did you see somebody put up a tweet about how the Three Amigos came out on like this date a couple of days ago, like in 1986, something, like 37 years ago. And if you remember who's in that movie, it's Chevy Chase and Martin Short and Steve Martin. And here we're showing this. Yeah, the Three Amigos was released in theaters today in 1986. And the thought occurred to me, that's cultural appropriation. I mean, you got Steve Martin.
I think it's beyond that. I think it's mexophobic.
There we go. So I used to take that for constipation, by the way. So yeah, but it is cultural appropriation. And however, they have made up for it by having Selena Gomez, which we mentioned earlier in the show, as the third amigo now in Only the Murders in the Building with Steve Martin and Martin Short, and she's anti-Israel. So it's all cool. The reparations are complete.
And she's also easier to work with than Chevy Chase.
Well, who isn't? Right. So there you go. Hey, I would love to keep this gag running forever, but what happened with the South Shore line?
Well,
in Indiana.
They're trying to extend the South Shore line into down into Southern Lake County, because the South Shore line, of course, just runs along the shore. It goes Hammond, Michigan to Michigan City.
Yeah.
So they've actually gone down because there's no access to Chicago public transit in my part of Lake County. So that they're spending billions to make it much easier for carjackers to get down here. It's the way I look.
That was
I look at
the
it.
way. That was. I thought it was going to be some kind of high-speed rail joke, but no. No.
Well, what happened was the educational trolley, the educational holiday trolley, which was 11 feet 9 inches high, didn't see the sign on the bridge that they just put up that not even being traveled anymore. It's still under construction. Didn't see the sign that says 11 feet. So
God.
It actually took out the whole bridge. So it's
wonderful. Well, have a trolley jolly Christmas. And which reminds me, he fired the shot into Hamilton's belly, and it shook and it quaked like a bowl full of jelly. Clement Moore. Oh, yeah. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.